I have a superpower in my business, and it's something that not many business mentors are talking about. And it is my ability to recognize when I am being myself. And I don't mean that through the lens of authority. I don't mean that through the lens of trusting myself. I mean this through the lens of my subconscious mind. And so inside of this video, I'm going to teach you how to know when you are experiencing a subconscious block, the exact things to look out for, and how you can actually bring yourself back to yourself. I'm sat in the park right now. I've just been doing my morning journaling. And I feel so compelled to make this video because I actually last night, did the first live call for Lose Your Leverage, which I've been speaking about in my past couple of videos. Highly recommend that you get into this, by the way. But one of the biggest things that we were talking about is how in this first call, we were reclaiming the narrative around your luteal phase, around your period as a woman in business, and how this actually not only sharpens your discernment, but it heightens all of the limiting beliefs, all of the stories that we tell about ourselves, all of the self-deprecating narratives, and it highlights where we are out of alignment with our identity. Now, that word I do think is sometimes a little bit ambiguous, especially in business. We talk about identity like it's just a label. It's just kind of like what we choose to wear and the thing that we choose to embody. But what people sort of seem to fail to understand is that it is so much deeper than this. Your identity is literally at the very core of who you are, and it's at the very core of your subconscious, because it is what it will use to guide how you interpret the world. Now, our subconscious is a lot like a sponge, and our subconscious is formed through our childhood, mostly up until the age of 7. And it's shaped by our experiences, it's shaped by the people that we're around, it's shaped by their beliefs, it's how we've interpreted things that have happened to us. And it's why you may or may not realize, but you are literally running your business as your 12-year-old self. And until we do the work to further your identity, until we do the work to actually free it of those internal narratives, it's basically like you're a 12-year-old running your business. And I say this with so much love, not to judge you, but maybe this has sparked a moment. And so what a lot of the work that I do with my clients is actually around bringing them home to themselves. And there is one very particular and very specific, powerful tool that I use to help them do this. For example, I had a client call a few weeks ago with one of my incredible clients, and we realized how much this narrative of needing to overexert herself to go above and beyond was running her business. And she has always been this way. And this is what I mean about your identity. She has always been the woman to push herself to no end. She never just took things at surface level. She would always need to go not just 1, but 10 steps beyond. And this feeling of almost needing to prove something has been something that's ruled most of her life. And in the very first session that we did, the very first one, because before I do anything with my one-to-one clients, we start with an audit call where we look at what your relationship is with success, money, and your mindset around money, and also what your core identity actually is. And this is usually where we find everything that we're going to be spending our time together actually working through. And we found for her that when we looked at the root of this, I went and did a technique with her, and we found that this core belief that I will never be enough was running her entire business and every single thing that she did. And it came from the fact that when she was in like year 3, when she was in primary school, for anyone international, when she was really young and about 9 years old, she did a sports day race and she came second. She told me that she remembers vividly winning a red ribbon instead of like a blue one. And she went to go and show her parents, bounding up to them like we are when we're children. She was so excited, and she showed her dad, and he was like, "Oh, it's not a red one though, is it?" And bam, literally in that moment, her subconscious has decided, well, shit, I need to win. I need to push myself above and beyond in order to get the validation, in order for my dad, which subconsciously gets interpreted to anyone, and for me to actually feel like I am good enough. And right then and there, her subconscious learned that I have to overachieve to feel good enough. I have to be exceptional to ever feel good enough. That I'm not going to be accepted, I'm not going to be valued, I'm not going to be loved if I'm not exceptional, if I don't overachieve. And that pride and recognition are hard to come by. And that is something that's impacted her relationship with her parents her entire adult life. And the work that we did was not removing the passions she had. It was not removing the need to overexert, but it was simply changing her relationship with it. And there's one very specific way that we did this. And that is what I'm going to teach you inside this video. So trust me, you're going to want to make some notes because the moment that, and I know that you are watching this as a business owner, as a woman who is so fucking driven, who has always taken on the emotions of other people, who has a mission and a passion that is so deep that you have never ever settled for surface level. And so when we're just going about our own lives, this is also what we experience in ourselves. You know, experiences that happen to us, conversations that we have with other people, friends, family, partners, clients are never just surface level. You have always been the woman to want to like dive so deep in with people. You crave soul connections, and that is what's reflected in your business. But what often happens is, as a result of feeling so deeply, as a result of, like I said, everything that you have picked up as a child, there's a way that your subconscious has therefore been formed, and the beliefs that have been cemented, and therefore how you see yourself, what you believe to be true about yourself and what is possible for you is all formed from that. And so when you start setting goals, when you start pushing yourself harder, maybe you start setting revenue targets, you know, I want to be working with X type of client or X number of clients, you start to feel resistance around pushing yourself to do that. And it's not, and what I want to make really clear is that it's not that you don't believe this is possible for you. And so I'm speaking to a very specific type of person in this video. And I know that you're resonating with this already, aren't you? Because it's not that you don't believe this is possible for you. When you think about setting those targets, not always the stretchy ones, like if we were to turn the dial and the volume up, maybe that's when the resistance starts to come in, is not setting the goals of like 10 or 20K months. But when you think about doubling that, that's when you're like, yeah, okay, fuck, resistance is there. But you know that it's possible for you. You know that you deserve everything that you want. But when you actually go about achieving them, something very specific happens, and the blocks that you start to feel very intense, just like everything that you feel can feel very intense at times. And so it is not just that you're more aware of the blocks themselves, but what starts to happen is we almost have this internal dialogue, right? You start to have that voice in the back of your head. You know that it's possible for you. You know that you deserve it. You know that you want it. You know, and you believe that you can actually do it. But then that voice kicks off in the back of your head. Right? And I know you know the one that I'm talking about, the one that starts to doubt it. Even though you know it's possible for you, it starts showing you like the risks that might happen, or showing you the evidence it thinks that shows, I'm not sure that you can. I know you believe that you can do this, but I'm not sure that you can. It starts to doubt if it's going to be too much work. It starts to doubt, well, shit, girl, the last time we put some stretchy goals up, we got so burnt out. And so it's starting to tell you all of the ways that stretchy goals equal burnout, equal, so you're never going to do this, equal, well, it crashed and burned the last time, equals, well, you got there, but look at how much you had to sacrifice, equals, we got there, but then you didn't hold it, equals, you know, you're going to end up making so much money. I just got hit by a leaf. You're going to end up making so much money that your partner's going to feel threatened by you. And we don't like it when partners have things to say about us. We have certain perceptions of money. We have certain perceptions of what wealth looks like, feels like, what that's going to do for my familial relationships, what that's going to do for how relatable I am to people online, what that's going to do to open me up to judgment, yada, yada, yada. And we have these very specific internal voices. And that is when parts of you become louder. And so to actually understand what's happening, so that you can understand when you are experiencing an internal block, we need to talk about something that sits underneath all of the work that I do with my clients. And when you understand this will become one of the most powerful tools in your arsenal, not just as a business owner, as a woman. And this is parts. Now, if you've investigated any subconscious or mindset work before, you may have come across this. And what I want to be really clear about is this is not self-development in the way of the books, the Mel Robbins, the, you know, Atomic Habits. This is very specifically subconscious work. And when you actually learn what parts are, fuck me, is this going to rock your world? This is one of my favorite things to do. And this is why I'm now recording this video in the park, because this is the work that I've just given myself 15 minutes on my day, 15 minutes of my morning to actually look at. Now, the easiest way to understand this, in my opinion, is the movie Inside Out. Now, in the film, if you have seen this, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. If not, press pause on this video. Your homework is to go and watch this movie. Warning, it may make you cry. It does for me every single time, but it's such a beautiful depiction of this concept. Now, in the movie, Riley is the main character, and in the first one, She is a young girl. She's experiencing her formative years. And Riley is not just one voice in her own head, right? The whole film is about these multiple characters that are in a control room, and it's in her brain. And I think in the first film, you've got joy, you've got anger, you've got sadness, and I think you have fear. Maybe one other, I can't quite remember off the top of my head, it's been a few years. But what starts to happen is that each one believes that they are trying to do the right thing by Riley. So every time she experiences a new experience, so a fight with her parents, she's experiencing a new hobby, a conversation with her friend. The whole movie, the first one, is built about her moving different cities and basically having to start her life again. And in those formative years, when she's having those experiences, they are literally getting encoded in her brain. And if you've seen the movie, they get trapped almost in these like glass bubbles, and they get framed as formative memories, and they're almost each encoded by each of the characters. So there'll be different colors depending on the character that was experienced in that moment, i.e. the emotion, i.e. the part that was leading when that memory was formed. So she has tons of memories. Most of them at that point in the film are Joy's memories, but then she starts to experience more anger, she starts to experience more sadness, and without ruining the rest of the movie, you kind of get where this is going. And this is the best way for us to actually experience what parts are for us. So we have Riley, i.e. you in self, without all of those parts. This is you at your truest identity, and it's usually a younger version of you. And there'll be different versions as you grow up, and you know, the more that you do subconscious work, the more that this does evolve beyond your childhood self. But we then have parts, just like an inside out, and each one has its own job, but more specifically, each one believes that it's trying to help, believes that it's trying to protect you, just like it was in Inside Out trying to protect Riley. Now, there isn't just one you. So we have self, which is like the calm, the grounded, the version of you who can observe, who can choose, who can lead, like the one where when all the noise, all the voices, all the parts are stripped back. This is you. Then there are parts which are essentially protective strategies that your brain has used and created at different parts and points, moments in your life that. And then there are parts which are protective strategies that your brain created in different moments of your life to help you navigate the world, to help you navigate the experiences that you were having. So you might have parts that push you harder. You will have parts like joy, anger, sadness, but you will also probably have parts that want to help keep you safe from rejection. You will have parts that want to avoid embarrassment. You will have parts that criticize you so that you don't get complacent. You will have parts that want you to rest, parts that want connection. But the really important part is that none of them are bad. And what often happens when we experience that voice in our head, let's say we want to go towards a goal and we want to push ourselves, and we have something that we really want because we do believe that, you know, it's possible for us. I want it. I'm going to get this. I can do it. And then that voice pops up. And maybe it is the part that wants you to rest. Maybe it is the part that learned pushing really hard equals burnout, and therefore I don't want to do that. And what it feels like is this battle, right? This internal conflict. And this is why I said sometimes it can truly feel so crippling, so frustrating, so like gut wrenching, because you're like, for fuck's sake, why can't I do this? And this is because of the way that your parts work. They are protective strategies. And so the first step to actually understanding when you're having an internal block is when it feels like there is conflict, right? You're about to make a move and then bang, there's a voice that comes up. And I want you to pay attention to what that voice is, because the first part to working with your parts is actually identifying like who's coming. Another really good way to think about this is if you've ever seen the movie Split, and obviously the main character has split personality disorder, and it's like these different voices are coming in, and there are different characters that you learn through the movie. Fucking incredible acting in that movie, by the way, but it's almost like guesswork of knowing who has just come in, who has just taken over. So the first thing that I want you to ask yourself is, how do I know that a part has just come in? How do you know that? And it will usually be freeze frame. It will usually be that internal voice that comes into the back of your head, the one that you are probably very familiar with by now. I want you to ask yourself, how do I know that a part has come in? That's the first stage. Now, what's really important to understand about these parts is very similar to the film Inside Out, is that none of these parts are inherently bad. They were just designed and invented by your brain to protect you. However, the issue is when one of those parts starts like taking over the control room, just like it does in Inside Out, and it kind of goes a little bit rogue, and it's doing its job almost too well. And it will have a very specific role that it plays in order to protect you. And when that starts taking over the control room, it feels like the fucking truth, doesn't it? All of a sudden, you are so dead set. And when you are in self, you know that you can, and you strongly believe that everything is possible for you. But then this part comes in and it's like, oh, maybe not. Maybe this part is self-doubt and it's trying to protect you from, like I said, in this instance, burning out by overexerting yourself in order to achieve that goal. And so then it feels like the truth. So you start acting on it. So you start backing down. And if I asked you, well, how do you know that part has come in? All of a sudden it feels like this internal fucking brick wall has gone up, doesn't it? That you suddenly start doubting yourself out of nowhere. And then all of a sudden it feels like, well, why the fuck am I attacking myself like this? So I want to give you 3 really simple stages to bring you not only back into awareness, but so that you can start working with this part towards the joint goal that you have, right? The part wants to keep you safe. You want that for yourself as well, but you've got some stretching goals. And it feels like, well, how can both be true at the same time? So by the end of this video, you're going to have the 3 steps to actually be able to do this. Now, what's really important is that, especially in the context of business, and this is the part that I don't see talked about that much when it comes to parts work, is that because the voice is out, it's easy for us to assume that it's right, isn't it? And what happens is that we almost either believe it completely, so it then becomes a block, and it almost like has its way with us, in that we don't then take action and we don't succeed in achieving our goals. So we believe that part completely and it gets us on its side, or we try to shut it down. So we try to ignore it and just push anyway, which means that the reins get pulled even harder by that part, and it will become even more like aggressive, as it were, in getting its way with you. And this is where we get insane internal conflict, and it becomes framed as this either or. So if we believe it, we withdraw, but if we suppress it, what I never see talked about is that we also lose the information that it might be trying to give us. And so that is the skill that I'm going to help you actually develop today. And when you are fully in self, you can listen to it, right? You can recognize that a different part of you is speaking, and you can still lead yourself through it without letting that part completely run the show. So once you know, how do you know that this part has come in? What I then want you to actually start identifying is, so which part is it that has just come in? And you'll know this through the internal narrative. Something I love to do with all of my clients is actually label these parts. One, because sometimes humor takes the emotional intensity out of things, and it's a really good way for us to actually work through things without it feeling so serious. So having fun with the labels. My clients have done this before. I had one client who felt like every time she was about to make a bold decision, this part of her just like slammed on this big red button, and it opened this trapdoor, and it threw any like self-belief that she had down that trapdoor. So we did the work, and she labeled it the trapdoor part, and we completely changed the role of this part, which is also something that I'm going to help you to do. I had another client who had such resistance from past experiences around men, and it meant that emotional vulnerability equaled a complete lack of safety to her. And so anytime, even now with her kids, with her husband, that, emotions were being brought up, she felt like this brick wall just went up. She started to feel resentment about having to have those types of conversations with her children. She was masking and hiding behind work a lot. And we labeled this part the brick wall part. And what do you know? The work that we did was completely changing the role of that brick wall. So what I also want you to do is, once you know that that part has come in, give it a label. And then I want you just to introduce yourself and be like, oh, hello, brick wall part, hello, self-sabotage part, hello. And I just want you to actually acknowledge the part that has just come in, because what this does is it creates that bit of distance and a bit of gap between you and the part. Then what you're going to do is, once you know that it's come in, we're going to acknowledge that it's going to have come in for a reason, right? It just wants to protect you. So there is a reason why it's rearing its head right now. What I then want you to ask is, what are you protecting me from right now? So in the instance of both of my clients, the trapdoor part was coming in to protect her from taking big action, because it didn't believe that she wasn't going to lose all of her self-belief and go back on her goals again. Because that part believed that she was inconsistent, because she had a deep-rooted belief at the time that she wasn't good enough. And so, of course, we were doing additional work on this, but we also needed to change the role of that trapdoor part, so that once that identity started shifting and she fully fucking owned and believed that she was good enough, she didn't have a part that was still trying to sabotage it, because it was running on an outdated rule. The same for my client who had the brick wall part. It was protecting her from being seen as weak in the eyes of people that mattered to her, because being weak felt like such a threat to her, because it put her in a position where she was emotionally vulnerable, and therefore she could get hurt. because she believed that she was a bad person and she believed that other people were going to see that in her. So if she was weak, if she was emotionally vulnerable, that was a threat. So this brick wall got thrown up. And so very similarly, the work that we've been doing is around her identity, seeing herself as someone who is a bad person, who is not worthy of love. And we've been then changing the role of that brick wall part. We did this in a single session, and in a single session, it shrunk down into a tiny little brick that's completely changed the relationship that she has with not only that part, but with herself, therefore her children, therefore her husband. And oh my God, it's so fucking powerful, but I'm jumping ahead of myself. So we will actually need to ask, well, what are you trying to protect me from? And you will have a very, very vivid answer once you sit with this. And this is the work that I've been doing today, because I've just launched a brand new offer, and I immediately felt this morning like so elated, but I could hear this little niggle in the back of my voice. So I took myself to the park and I just did some work with it. And I was like, hello, little niggle. Who are you? What are you trying to protect me from? And I then and there did the technique that I do with my clients, and I completely shifted the role of it. Because what is so important to understand is that usually when that part starts leading and we act on it, we're also then driven by shame, we're driven by guilt, self-judgment. We have this horrible internal narrative because we've gone the either way. So the work that parts does is actually just harmonizing everything so that you are working together with your parts instead of feeling like you are in this internal battle, in this internal conflict. So the way to know if you are experiencing an internal block is that you will hear that internal voice happening. And I want you to ask yourself what the specific trigger is for you to know when a part has come in. Oh my God, it's starting to rain. Sorry, it's just starting to rain, so I'm going to wrap up the video. Then you're going to ask, okay, how do I know this part has come in? What is the part that's come in, and what is it trying to protect me from? Then what I always do with my clients is we put together like 3 to 4 questions so that we can start harmonizing with this part that we can actually ask it. So once you know what it's trying to protect you from, you could ask something like, okay, so what do you need right now? If it's trying to protect you from the perception of failure, i.e., well, if you fail, that's going to confirm to you that you're not good enough because of the deep-rooted belief and identity that you hold about yourself. Or maybe it's trying to protect you from burnout. If you overexert and you burn out, I don't want that for you because it was fucking exhausting and it meant that we had to literally pick ourselves up off the floor again every time we tried to set a goal. Then maybe it needs some comfort. So then you ask it, right, what do I need right now? And how can I give you that whilst also honoring the goals that I have? And so for you, that might be something like, well, if I need comfort, maybe I time block a little bit more aggressively with myself today so that I know I can still get everything done that I want to, but I give myself an earlier cut of time so that I can give myself that comfort, so that I can curl up with, a book, so that I can go and watch a film, so that I can have a date night with my partner. There'll also be instances where maybe it's trying to protect you from judgment. Maybe it's trying to protect you from the perception of rejection. And so once you ask it what it needs, maybe it needs some validation. So one thing I get all of my clients to do is to make an album of like all of your incredible wins. I also get them to celebrate their wins relentlessly because this is how we create evidence for our subconscious and also these parts. But having, albums, screenshots of your client wins, having screenshots of revenue milestones every time you surpassed it, like whatever feels good for you, depending on where this part comes in, actually having like an evidence bank. So if it needs validation, if you're fearing rejection, so it needs to feel validation, but you also need to go and, sell so that you can create even more evidence. You're like, well, I have these revenue goals, but if I don't sell because I'm fearing rejection, then I can't possibly do that. So how do I honor both of us? And we get that middle ground. You're like, right, well, I'm going to go and sell, and then I'm going to give myself a shit ton of validation. So I'm going to go and celebrate the absolute fuck out of myself for selling. Or I'm going to open my wins folder and I'm just going to give myself 5 minutes to absolutely revel and anchor in how incredible I am. Do you see what I mean? So actually having follow-up. So what I want you to do is, how do you know this part's coming? Name the part, say hi to this part. Then I want you to ask it, right, what are you coming in for and what are you protecting me from right now? Once you know that, then ask it, what does it need? So if it's trying to protect you, it's probably going to need you to do the opposite of what you're trying to do, or somewhere in that region. So then you finish this by asking, okay, how can I honor both you and me? How can I take steps forwards towards the goals that I want, but also honor what you are needing right now? Validation, whether it's comfort, whether it's some safety, whether it's some love. I need a hug from my partner right now. Any of those things. And I want you then to come up with ways that you can honor that. And this is how we start then, not seeing these parts as like the angel and devil on your shoulder, but actually just as a mechanism that wants to protect you, as a part that's come in at some point in your life. Now, the subconscious work that we do is then changing the role of this. But in the meantime, this is one of the most powerful things that you can do then and there, is to actually just be able to honor both you and the parts. We're not experiencing this internal conflict. So it's not this like annoying, grating fucking voice in the back of your head. It's actually something that you still get to work with. And when that happens, everything feels so much more aligned. You start trusting yourself as self to be able to make the decisions. Your subconscious no longer feels like it is the single biggest thing that is blocking you from your goals, but actually something that you can still work with. And this is where it completely changes your leadership and the results that you're going to get. It still allows you to go and sell. It doesn't mean that you're not going to feel resistance. It means that you can feel it and do the work anyway, not by pushing through, but by actually having a conversation with the part of you that was coming in to protect you in that moment. And of course, if you want to explore this work even further, this is what we do inside of my world with my one-to-one, the internal flame. Parts is one of the biggest things that I will look at to help not only change the roles of those, but to actually look at, well, where did that part form? What needs to change? At what moment was it actually created to protect you? And what was it trying to protect you from? And we will go back and change the limiting beliefs, the identities that were formed in that moment, so that this part has a brand new role that's actually aligned with supporting your success, you know, the financial freedom, the money goals that you want, but also the relationships, the types of relationships that you want to have, how you want to see yourself. Everything about your dream life that gets to change, and you get to have these parts also subconsciously on board so that you are working together, so that you are working with them. But this is one of my favorite fucking techniques. So I hope that you have loved this video. Literally just a little half hour spontaneous video in the park off the back of my own work, but truly this will change everything for you when you learn how to do it, and it gets to be really simple. So I just want you to ask those 5 questions to your subconscious parts so that you can start feeling aligned. And as always, if you've loved this video, share it with someone that needs to hear this, give it a like, give it a save, and make sure to subscribe for more videos like this. I will see you very, very soon.